Imagine discovering that your own son has been calling you a washed-up construction worker, playing with dollhouses behind your back for 2 years. Now imagine him saying it to 300 wedding guests while you sit there, quietly enduring the humiliation. That's exactly what happened to me at Ryan's wedding in Austin. But here's what my son didn't know. The toy houses he was mocking were actually a 200-property empire worth more than everyone in that room combined. When the truth exploded that night, it didn't just end the laughter. It ended relationships, destroyed reputations, and forced me to make the hardest decision of my life about whether some betrayals are simply unforgivable. What would you do if your own son humiliated you like this? Comment below and tell me where you're listening from. I read every single response before revealing what happened next at table 12. You know that feeling when you're proud of your child but also dreading what they might say about you? That was me, Mark Davis, 59 years old, sitting at table 12 in this gorgeous hill country ranch venue. 300 guests filled the reception hall, crystal chandeliers sparkling above Austin's finest, dressed for what society would call the wedding of the year. My son Ryan looked handsome in his black tuxedo, beaming beside his new wife Lisa, a sharp woman who worked for one of Texas's biggest commercial real estate firms. The ceremony had been perfect. Ryan's vows brought tears to my eyes, but this knot in my stomach kept growing tighter. During wedding planning, Ryan had made something very clear. "Dad, please just keep it simple," he'd said. "If anyone asks what you do, just say you're retired from construction. Don't go into the whole house flipping thing. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. That word stung more than I'd let on. But I'd agreed because I loved my son and wanted his day perfect. So there I sat, quietly nursing my whiskey, watching Lisa's colleagues fill the front tables. Polished professionals discussing market trends and development deals. I recognized several faces from Austin real estate, though none knew who I was. That was by design. Ryan's college friends scattered throughout the middle section. Young tech and finance professionals who measured success by job titles and salaries. They'd been polite during cocktail hour, but I saw the pity when Ryan introduced me as his dad who used to work construction. I'd helped pay for more of this wedding than Ryan realized. The upgraded venue, the premium package, the extra touches that made Lisa's eyes light up. Not that he'd asked where the money came from. He just assumed it was leftover savings from my construction days. The dinner went smoothly. Excellent food, flowing wine, festive atmosphere. I'd avoided work conversations by asking others about theirs. People love talking about themselves, especially successful people at fancy weddings. But now Ryan was standing, tapping his champagne glass with a silver knife. That knot in my stomach became a full-blown cramp. 300 guests turned their attention to the groom as the room quieted. Lisa squeezed his hand encouragingly, her smile bright and expectant. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Ryan began, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "Lisa and I are overwhelmed by your love and support. This has truly been the perfect day." He paused, looking around with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. His eyes found mine briefly, and I saw something that made my heart sink. This wasn't going to be a simple thank you speech. "Before we continue celebrating, I want to take a moment to talk about family," Ryan continued, his tone shifting. "Specifically, I want to talk about my father." The room fell completely silent. 300 pairs of eyes began searching for me at table 12. This was the moment I'd been dreading all day. I forced a smile and raised my glass slightly, hoping this would be brief and kind. Maybe Ryan would thank me for supporting him, for being there through the years. Maybe he'd mention how proud he was to be my son. I was wrong. "My dad's been going through what I guess you'd call a late-life crisis," Ryan said with a grin that made my blood run cold. The room chuckled, and I felt my face burn. At 59, he decided he wants to be a real estate mogul. The laughter got louder. Lisa was beaming at her husband, clearly delighted with his comedic timing. "We keep telling him he should act his age, but he won't listen," Ryan continued, gesturing toward my table. "He's out there buying these little rundown houses, thinking he's some kind of property tycoon. It's actually pretty cute, like watching a kid play with toy houses." The crowd erupted, 300 people laughing at my expense while I sat there with that frozen smile, dying inside. But Ryan wasn't finished. "The best part is how seriously he takes it," my son said, warming to his theme. "He's got business cards made up, talks about properties and investments like he's running some kind of empire. We just nod along and try not to hurt his feelings." Lisa leaned into the microphone. "Tell them about the truck, honey." "Oh, right," Ryan laughed. "He drives around in this beat-up pickup truck, looking at houses he'll never be able to afford. The neighbors probably think he's casing the joint for burglaries. The laughter was deafening now. I could see people wiping tears from their eyes, slapping their knees, having the time of their lives at my expense. The real estate professionals at the front tables were practically howling. One of them, a distinguished man in an expensive suit, was shaking his head with an amused smile. "Look, we love Dad anyway," Ryan said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Even if his big dreams are a little unrealistic for someone his age. I mean, when you're pushing 60 and you've spent your whole life swinging a hammer, maybe it's time to accept your limitations." That hit like a physical blow. My whole life swinging a hammer. Limitations. My own son, reducing 30 years of skilled construction work to some kind of failure. But hey, Ryan raised his glass. At least he's staying busy instead of just sitting around feeling sorry for himself, like most guys his age do after they get laid off. We support Dad's little hobby, even if it means listening to him talk about square footage and market values like he actually knows what he's talking about. The way he said little hobby with those air quotes, the dismissive laughter, the 300 people all enjoying this public humiliation of the man who'd raised him, who'd worked double shifts to pay for his college, who just helped fund this very wedding he was being mocked at. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out and never speak to either of them again. But I sat there, trapped by love and politeness, watching my son destroy me for entertainment. "So here's to Dad," Ryan concluded, raising his champagne high. "May his retirement dreams stay small enough that he can't get into too much trouble." The toast thundered through the room, 300 glasses raised to mock the delusional old man at table 12. But as the applause died down, I noticed something. That distinguished man at the front table wasn't laughing anymore. He was staring at me with a very different expression. Recognition. But to understand how my son's wedding turned into the most humiliating night of my life, and why that man's recognition would change everything, I need to take you back 2 years to when this whole thing started. I was Mark Davis, 57 years old, construction supervisor for Henderson Development, one of Austin's biggest builders. For 32 years, I'd managed crews, read blueprints, and turned empty lots into neighborhoods. I knew every inch of Austin's construction scene, every contractor worth hiring, every supplier who'd deliver quality materials on time. Then came that Tuesday morning in March. We were working on a luxury development in Westlake Hills when the crane operator made a mistake. The load shifted, cables snapped, and 3 tons of steel beams came crashing down. I pushed 2 of my guys out of the way, but couldn't get clear myself. I woke up in Del Seaton Medical Center with a shattered left leg, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion that kept me dizzy for weeks. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. Henderson Development said I was lucky they wouldn't fight the workers' compensation claim. What they didn't say, but made crystal clear through their lawyers, was that 57-year-old supervisors with major injuries weren't exactly in high demand. The settlement was fair, the medical bills were covered, but my career was over. Just like that, Ryan visited me exactly twice in the hospital. Both times, he spent more time on his phone than talking to me. "Don't worry, Dad," he'd said. "You've got your pension coming, and now you can finally relax. Maybe take up fishing or something." Fishing. Like I was ready to be put out to pasture. The first few months were dark. I sat in my small apartment, watching daytime television and feeling sorry for myself. The settlement money was decent, but it wouldn't last forever. Ryan had started dating Lisa around that time, and whenever they visited, I could see the embarrassment in his eyes. His girlfriend was this sharp, successful real estate agent, and his dad was a broken-down construction worker collecting disability. That's when I saw the house. I was driving around one afternoon, just to get out of the apartment, when I spotted this little ranch-style home in East Austin. The for sale sign had been there so long it was faded, the yard was overgrown, and half the shutters were hanging crooked. But I saw something else. I saw potential. 32 years in construction had taught me to see beyond the surface problems. The foundation was solid, the roof structure was sound, and the neighborhood was gentrifying fast. Young professionals were moving in, fixing up the old houses, turning working-class blocks into trendy addresses. I called the listing agent that afternoon. The house had been on the market for 8 months. The owner was desperate to sell, willing to take $40,000 below asking price. With my settlement money, I could buy it cash, and still have enough left over for materials. Ryan thought I'd lost my mind. "Dad, you can barely walk upstairs. How are you going to renovate a house?" But he didn't understand. I wasn't just buying a house. I was buying my future back. 3 months later, I'd transformed that wreck into a showpiece, New kitchen, updated bathrooms, hardwood floors, refinished to gleaming perfection. I sold it for $60,000 more than I'd paid, even after materials and the few subcontractors I'd hired for the heavy work I couldn't handle alone. That's when I knew I wasn't done, not even close. That first house taught me something Ryan and Lisa would never understand. Age wasn't my limitation. It was my advantage. While young flippers guessed at renovation costs, I knew exactly what materials would cost and which contractors wouldn't rip me off. While they learned through expensive mistakes, I leveraged 30 years of construction knowledge to spot problems others missed. Within 6 months, I'd flipped 3 more houses, each one bigger profit than the last. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. Instead of just flipping, I started keeping the best properties as rentals. By year 1, I owned 12 houses across Austin's hottest neighborhoods: East Austin, Muller, Rainey Street District. The rental income covered my living expenses while property values climbed faster than I'd imagined. I was smart about it. Set up Davis Properties as an LLC, kept my name out of public records, worked through property management companies. To the world, Davis Properties was just another faceless investment group. Nobody connected it to Mark Davis, the washed-up construction worker. Ryan and Lisa had no idea. They saw the same small apartment, same beat-up truck, same man playing with toy houses. I let them think that because their reaction revealed everything about their character. "Dad's still doing his little house thing," Ryan would tell people. "It keeps him busy." Lisa was worse. She'd patronize me with, "How's your hobby going, Mark?" Then launch into stories about her real job, handling commercial properties for serious investors. The irony was delicious. Lisa worked for Morrison & Associates, Austin's premier commercial real estate firm. What she didn't know was that Davis Properties had become one of their biggest clients. I was buying strip malls, office buildings, apartment complexes through Morrison's commercial division. I'd listened to Lisa brag about landing this mysterious client buying up half of East Austin. She'd gush about how impressive Davis Properties was, how they moved fast with cash offers, clearly run by someone who understood the market. "I wish I could meet whoever runs Davis Properties," she said one Sunday dinner. "They're obviously a major player, probably some tech mogul or oil money from Houston." Ryan nodded. "That's real business, Dad. Not like your little fix and flip projects." By 18 months, I owned over 200 properties across Austin: houses, condos, commercial buildings, vacant lots in developing areas. Davis Properties was worth more than $50 million, with monthly cash flow exceeding most people's annual salaries. I was one of Texas's biggest real estate investors, and my family thought I was a sad old man playing with doll houses. Wedding planning started around that time. Ryan was nervous about introducing Lisa's colleagues to his construction worker father. "Please don't embarrass me talking about your house projects," he said. "These are serious business people." I almost laughed. Several of those serious business people worked for companies I now owned. That distinguished gentleman he was eager to impress probably had my signature on his employment contracts, but I kept quiet. I wanted to see how far their cruelty would go before the truth came out. The wedding planning brought out the worst in both of them. Ryan called me 3 months before the big day. "Dad, we need to talk about the reception." Lisa's guest list includes important people from her firm, managing partners, senior agents, major clients, heavy hitters in Austin real estate. I almost smiled. If he only knew how many answered to me. "I need you to promise something," Ryan continued. "Please don't talk about your house flipping hobby. Just tell people you're retired from construction. That's it." "Ryan, I've never been dishonest about my work." "That's the problem. You get carried away talking about square footage and market trends like you're some expert. It's embarrassing. These people deal with $100 million portfolios. They don't need to hear about your little side projects." "Little side projects." Again, Lisa got on the phone. "Mark, I hope you understand. This is really important to my career. Some of these people could make or break my future at the firm." The irony was staggering. Her future at Morrison & Associates depended on keeping Davis Properties happy, and she was asking Davis Properties to pretend he didn't exist. "Of course, I want your day perfect." But the requests kept coming. "Don't wear construction boots. Don't sit with real estate people. Please don't mention any properties you've worked on." Each conversation felt like betrayal. This was my son, the boy I'd raised alone, worked double shifts to put through college, and he was ashamed of me. The worst part was money. Ryan and Lisa had champagne tastes, but beer budgets. The venue they wanted cost $30,000 more than they could afford. Lisa's catering upgrade was another 15,000. The flowers, photographer, band kept pushing the total higher. I watched them stress for weeks before calling their wedding planner. "This is Mark Davis. I'd like to cover the additional expenses for the Ryan Davis wedding. Should I let them know the donor number? Just say an anonymous family friend wanted to help." Ryan called that night, ecstatic. "Dad, you won't believe it. Some family friend paid for all the upgrades. Lisa's over the moon. This is going to be the wedding of the year." I listened to him gush about anonymous generosity while signing another acquisition contract. The building I was buying that week cost more than his entire wedding. The final insult came 2 weeks before the wedding. Ryan stopped by with the seating chart. "I put you at table 12. It's toward the back, but you'll have a good view. Table 12. As far from important people as possible, hidden where the embarrassing construction worker father couldn't mingle with Austin's real estate elite." "That sounds perfect," I said. As wedding day approached, I dreaded it more each day. Not because I wasn't happy for Ryan, but because I knew what was coming. I'd seen their cruel streak during planning, the way they talked about me when they thought I couldn't hear. I had a choice. Reveal the truth about Davis properties before the wedding, or let them have their moment and see how far their cruelty would go. Before the story gets to the climax, comment below and let me know, if it were you, what would you choose? As for me, I chose to wait. Sometimes people need to reveal who they really are before they can change. The morning dawned perfect. Clear Texas sky, mid-70s, gentle hill country breeze. I stood in the back watching 300 guests take their seats, feeling that familiar mix of pride and dread. Ryan looked incredible in his tuxedo at the altar. When Lisa appeared in her flowing white gown, even I admitted she was stunning. Watching my son's face light up as his bride walked down the aisle, I forgot the tension and just felt happy for him. The ceremony was flawless. Heartfelt vows, elegant exchange, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, I wiped away tears. Whatever was wrong between us, this was my boy starting life with the woman he loved. But moving to cocktail hour, that not returned. The reception area was spectacular. My anonymous upgrades were everywhere. Crystal chandeliers, ivory linens, magazine-worthy flowers, top-shelf bar, breathtaking hill country view. I'd paid for their perfect day while they planned to hide me in the corner. I ordered whiskey and tried blending into the background. That's when I recognized faces from Austin's real estate world. The distinguished man from Morrison and Associates held court near windows. Competing firm partners discussed market trends. City planning commissioners mingled with the crowd. This wasn't just Lisa's colleagues. This was Austin's real estate power structure, drinking champagne bought with money from a man they'd never heard of. "You must be the father of the groom." I turned to find a well-dressed woman extending her hand. Patricia Morrison, Lisa's boss at Morrison and Associates. My heart nearly stopped. Patricia Morrison founded the firm handling most of my commercial acquisitions. Her signature was on dozens of my contracts, but we'd never met face to face. "Mark Davis," I said carefully. "Lisa speaks of you often. She mentioned you're retired from construction. How wonderful that you can enjoy your golden years." Golden years. Like I was some old-timer puttering in his garden. I try to stay busy. Hobbies are so important for men your age. Keeps the mind sharp. I excused myself before saying something I'd regret. The irony was unbearable. I was standing 3 feet from a woman whose firm made millions in commissions from my deals, and she was talking to me like her elderly uncle. Cocktail hour dragged on. I gravitated toward conversation edges, listening to real estate professionals discuss deals I'd been involved in, markets I'd helped shape, properties I owned. They spoke with insider confidence, never imagining the quiet man in the corner knew more about Austin real estate than all of them combined. Finally, dinner was announced. I made my way to table 12, tucked in the back corner as Ryan promised. My table mates were distant relatives and family friends making polite weather conversation. From my vantage point, I could see the head table where Ryan and Lisa sat with their wedding party, and front tables filled with Morrison and Associates partners. The contrast wasn't subtle. Important people up front, embarrassing construction worker dad hidden in back. First course served, wine poured, conversation flowing. I was starting to relax, thinking maybe I'd get through this evening without incident. Then Ryan stood up, tapped his champagne glass, and reached for the microphone. What came next was worse than anything I'd imagined. "You know, everyone always asks about Lisa's success," Ryan continued, his confidence growing with each laugh. "But nobody talks about the comedy gold that is my father's midlife crisis." The laughter got meaner. I could see people leaning forward, anticipating more entertainment at my expense. The man actually thinks he's going to become a real estate mogul, Ryan said, gesturing toward table 12. At 59, after spending his whole life with a hammer in his hand, Lisa leaned into the microphone. Tell them about the business cards, honey. Oh my God, the business cards, Ryan laughed. He had business cards made. Mark Davis, property investment specialist. I'm not kidding. He carries them around like he's actually going to network with real professionals. The crowd was howling now. I watched Patricia Morrison cover her mouth, trying not to laugh too hard. The distinguished man I'd noticed earlier was shaking his head with amusement, probably thinking about how pathetic old construction workers could be. The best part, Ryan's voice grew crueler, is watching him try to talk shop with actual real estate people. He'll throw around terms he learned on YouTube, talking about market analysis and investment strategies like he has any clue what those words mean. My chest felt tight. This wasn't just mockery anymore. This was character assassination in front of 300 people, including dozens of professionals who could have been valuable business connections if they'd known the truth. We've tried to be supportive, Lisa added, her voice dripping with false sympathy. But at some point, you have to face reality. Some dreams have expiration dates. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. Some dreams have expiration dates. My own daughter-in-law, telling 300 people that my ambitions were too big for my age. I mean, look at him, Ryan continued, pointing directly at me. Sitting there in his discount suit, probably calculating how many lawns he'd have to mow to afford one of the properties he pretends to understand. The laughter was vicious now. People weren't just amused anymore. They were feeding off the cruelty, enjoying the spectacle of watching a successful young couple publicly destroy the old man who'd raised one of them. But here's what really gets me. Ryan's voice turned sharper. He actually thinks we don't know how pathetic this whole thing is. Like we're going to pretend his little house projects are impressive because we don't want to hurt his feelings. I felt something break inside me. This wasn't just about business success or family respect anymore. This was my son telling 300 people that I was pathetic, that my feelings didn't matter, that everything I'd worked for was a joke. So let's all raise a glass, Ryan concluded, lifting his champagne high, to my father's adorable delusions. May they stay small enough that he can't get into too much financial trouble. The toast thundered through the room. 300 glasses raised to mock the delusional old fool at table 12. But as the applause died down and people began to sit, I noticed something different. That distinguished man at the front table wasn't laughing anymore. He was staring at me with an expression I recognized from business meetings. The look of someone trying to place a face, connect a name, remember where they'd seen someone before. Patricia Morrison had stopped smiling too. She was looking between me and the man beside her, a conversation happening in whispers. Recognition was dawning, and when it fully hit, this room was about to get very quiet very fast. The distinguished man stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. Patricia Morrison grabbed his arm, but he was already walking toward my table with determined strides. "Excuse me," he said, his voice cutting through the lingering laughter. "Are you Mark Davis?" Conversations around nearby tables stopped as people turned to see what was happening. "Yes," I said quietly. "James Harrison, managing partner at Morrison and Associates." He extended his hand, his expression intense. "Mr. Davis, are you the Mark Davis who owns Davis Properties?" The room hadn't gone completely quiet yet, but attention was shifting our way. Patricia Morrison had followed James, her face pale with growing realization. "Yes, I am." James Harrison's face went through shock, disbelief, then something approaching horror as the implications hit. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Mr. Davis, I am so incredibly sorry. I had no idea you were here tonight." "It's fine, Mr. Harrison." "No, it's not fine," he said, his voice getting louder. "What just happened here is absolutely not fine." Patricia Morrison stepped forward, her professional composure cracking. "Mr. Davis, please forgive me. Your property management company handles all our communications, but I never connected the name." Their raised voices had drawn attention from surrounding tables. Ryan was looking our way with confusion, probably wondering why important business people were suddenly interested in his embarrassing father. James Harrison looked around the room, then back at me. "Mr. Davis, with your permission, I think people need to know who you really are." I studied his face, then looked toward the head table where Ryan and Lisa watched with growing confusion. After what I'd endured, part of me wanted to let the truth explode. "All right," I said. James Harrison walked to the front and took the microphone from the confused DJ. "Excuse me, everyone." His voice boomed across the reception hall. "I'm James Harrison, managing partner at Morrison and Associates. I need to interrupt because something very important has just come to my attention. The room fell completely silent. 300 guests turned to look at him, including Ryan and Lisa, who were staring with growing alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just witnessed something deeply troubling. The father of the groom has been publicly mocked tonight for his business ventures. What you don't know is that the man sitting quietly at table 12 is Mark Davis, founder and CEO of Davis Properties. Gasps echoed around the room. Several real estate professionals sat up straighter, recognition flooding their faces. Davis Properties, James continued, owns over 200 properties in Austin, with a portfolio worth more than $50 million. Mr. Davis is not some amateur playing with toy houses. He is one of the most successful real estate investors in Texas. The silence was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Ryan's face had gone completely white. Lisa looked like she was going to be sick. Around the room, real estate professionals were frantically whispering, probably remembering deals they'd handled for Davis Properties. Furthermore, James's voice cut through the noise. Many of you work for companies that have benefited from Mr. Davis's business. The man you've been laughing at tonight is quite possibly the most powerful person in this room. He handed the microphone back. The room remained in stunned silence, 300 people trying to process what they'd just learned. That's when Ryan finally found his voice. "Dad," he said, barely audible, "is this true?" I looked at my son across that silent room, seeing him truly for the first time in years. Not the confident young professional who'd just humiliated me, but a scared boy who'd realized he'd made a terrible mistake. "Yes, Ryan. It's true." The words fell like stones into still water. Lisa covered her face with her hands. Ryan's legs seemed to give out as he sank back into his chair. "Every word Mr. Harrison said is accurate," I continued, my voice carrying clearly in the silence. "I own Davis Properties. I've been one of Austin's largest real estate investors for the past 2 years. And yes, I paid for most of this wedding through an anonymous donation because I wanted your day to be perfect." Ryan's face crumpled. "Dad, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry." Lisa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Mark, please forgive us. We didn't know. If we had known..." "But that's exactly the problem," I said, standing up from table 12. "You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You decided what my story was and never once considered you might be wrong." I walked toward the head table, 300 pairs of eyes following me. "Ryan, you stood up here tonight and told these people I was pathetic. You mocked my dreams, called my work embarrassing, suggested I should act my age and accept my limitations." "I was wrong," Ryan said, tears in his eyes. "I was so wrong, Dad. Please, can you forgive me?" I stopped a few feet from their table. "Son, I love you. I always will. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust, and trust has to be earned back." Lisa looked up at me desperately. "What can we do? How can we fix this?" "That's up to you to figure out," I said. "But it starts with understanding that respect isn't something you give when someone proves they deserve it. It's something you give because they're human beings who matter." I looked around the room at the 300 guests who'd been laughing at me an hour ago. I hope tonight taught all of us something about making assumptions. 6 months later, things had changed in ways I never expected. Ryan started calling every Sunday, not to ask for anything, but just to talk. He'd enrolled in real estate courses, genuinely wanting to understand the business he'd mocked. Lisa left Morrison and Associates to start her own firm, saying she needed to prove herself without riding on connections she hadn't earned. They were trying, really trying. But trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. As for me, I finally went public with Davis Properties. No more hiding behind anonymity. At 60, I learned that success means nothing if you have to keep it secret to protect other people's feelings. So that's my story. Sometimes the people closest to us can't see who we really are until the truth forces them to look. Was my son's public humiliation justified payback for years of dismissal? Should I have revealed my success earlier to spare us all this pain? Looking back on that night, I realized God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes he allows us to be broken down completely before he builds us back up stronger. The pain of my son's betrayal was devastating, but it taught me something profound about human nature and forgiveness. Family betrayal stories like mine aren't uncommon. We live in a world where success is measured by appearances, where age is seen as limitation rather than wisdom. But God sees the heart when others see only the surface. He knew my worth even when my own family couldn't. The real lesson isn't about proving people wrong or achieving business success. It's about understanding that our value doesn't depend on others' recognition. Whether you're reading grandpa stories about late life triumph or betrayal stories about family disappointment, remember this: respect should be given freely, not earned through wealth or status. Many grandpa stories end with bitterness, but mine taught me that forgiveness is possible even after deep hurt. God gives us the strength to love people who've wounded us, while still maintaining healthy boundaries. Ryan and Lisa are learning this lesson slowly, and I pray they'll become better people through this experience. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear about your own experiences with family expectations or late life dreams in the comments below. Have you ever felt underestimated because of your age? Please share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to surprise the world. Your support means everything to our community of dreamers who refuse to be defined by others' limitations.